I know you did a stream on this. That's one of the ones I watched of you doing it. But can you just give us like you can compress it a bit, but just give us an idea of how that's actually possible. Like, I always think of Peter Thiel. He's one of my heroes out there in the business world and libertarian world and stuff like that. How do you actually get this done? If he's a billionaire and billionaires aren't doing it yet, like how do we get it done, for example?
Yeah, no, good question. So Peter Thiel, he's another good book recommendation. Peter Thiel, 0 to 1.
0 to 1. Yeah.
That's definitely on the read. It's a very quick read.
Anything Peter Thiel says, any speech he gives, I watch it. I love it. I'm a fucking Peter Thiel fan.
I like, he's a contrarian to himself, which I like. He is contrarian to the max. Like, he will say, like, sometimes he'll say some things that are like communist leaning, very socialized leaning, and then sometimes it'll be like completely capitalist, freedom, anarchy, and it's like all over the place. But I appreciate his thoughts.
That's a good way of putting it. I appreciate his thoughts more than anything.
Yeah. And so he actually funded somebody, what his name was, he's Milton Friedman's son or uncle's kid or something. I don't know. But I think is Peter Friedman or something like that. I can't remember his name. It's a little different. But he, anyway, he tried to do the seasteading thing. He also tried to buy some property in, I think, Guatemala and try to set up an anarchist society. And it, he only donated 100,000, which isn't nothing, but it wasn't really enough to have significant impact. Like, you're going to need a lot of money, right? Because Guatemala is actually very dangerous. And so you're going to you have to have security set up right away, to protect your land. And, and then you're going to have to set up agreements to kind of work with Guatemala or your neighboring, places. Cause, if Guatemala gives you some land, but it's not next to an ocean, and you're landlocked, well, now you have to kind of work with the surrounding areas. So there's lots of challenges, and it's going to be a lot.
Military?
Well, you need security of some type, right? Or you need protection somehow, something.
Yeah.
Because you never know, and it might not even be Guatemala and the government that comes after you. It just might be the cartel or some rebels that see what you're trying to do, and if you're successful and you have money to begin with, and you go there and you try to set up shop and do something, they're like, well, we're just going to come rob you, and what are you going to do about it? I mean, Richard Hart's been robbed.
I think that's one of the criticisms
too.
That's one of the criticisms too. I mean, let's say all this stuff happened. I'll let you get back into like how it can actually happen, but just want to ask you real quick. Let's say everything happened, it worked out. We got a country, everything's going great, and then one day, what's stopping one day of just a drone coming by and just blowing the whole island up or whatever, or the whole artificial island or whatever it is? Like, how do you a lot of people see the protection of big countries as that factor of having the security and knowing that you're going to have another day and no one's going to do that. So that's how would you answer that criticism?
Well, so what would be the incentive for somebody to come by and nuke a community, right?
Because you can't have your own country. I don't
know. No, I mean, I think violence is expensive, but that doesn't mean you cannot. You have to defend yourself. You absolutely have to defend yourself at all times. I'm in favor. I want to be able to buy fucking F-14s. I want a nuclear bomb. I want the ability to be able to buy that stuff, and have that protection. Now it would take a lot to get set up in that direction, or have like what the Israelis use, the Iron Dome, I think they call it, which so Israel and Palestine, they have a lot of conflict with each other. And so anytime, there's rocket launches from Palestine into Israel, they have the Iron Dome, which is extremely successful. It launches counter missiles and knocks them out in a very safe area so that it never affects anybody. So it just shoots them out of the sky, and it's very effective. So those kind of countermeasures exist. And I don't know how expensive something like that is, but that's something that I think would be well worth it.
So
And
cost would be a factor for protection. Like you would need a lot of money in order to provide that kind of defense. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're going to have to build to that ability, right? Like if there's only 10 of you there, nobody's going to come kind of bomb you unless you're causing problems with somebody else. You're just not on the radar, right? People have other things to focus on.
You better be non-interventionist if we do this, right?
Yeah, yeah. But if you grow and you have a community of like 100,000, 200,000, a million, well, now you can scale. You should have the money to, at least roughly be able to get a loan at the very least to be able to afford that, and then pay it off over time. If you're a growing society. So like, I think those things are possible. I think, so the Second Amendment is about, individual states. So one thing people don't understand is the federal government, the 50 states are supposed to be individual countries of their own. And then they come together more like a European Union, and that's what the federal government's supposed to represent. Now it's been, changed since the inception of that. But
yeah, the states' rights have been challenged since the Civil War and stuff like that too.
Right. So if you take a state in the middle of the U.S., and let's say they wanted to start a little, like let's say they wanted to secede from the rest of the U.S. Sure, the U.S. could come in and bomb that state, Colorado or something, right? Like let's say they had a secession movement, or Idaho had a secession movement.
Texas.
It's Texas. So they have well within their rights to do that, right? That is something that they have the right to do, and I think that's actually becoming popular, or at least it's becoming a conversational piece. That maybe a national divorce is something that we do, and in the book, Politically Incorrect Guide, that touches on that idea. So I don't know if you got to that point, but
not yet, no.
Yeah. So it talks about the Civil War and what it was really about. So.
Oh no, sorry, I did get to that point. That part, yeah.
So, these ideas are that could happen. Well, what would be the incentive for the U.S. to come after a Colorado, Idaho, or some other country that's landlocked, right? Let's say some landlocked country that has to defend all of its borders. I don't think it would really happen, because the people that in the neighboring states, they probably have family members there. They probably have commerce that state does with other states. And so they would want to set up agreements to work with each other, right? A lot of the agreements that they have, the interstate commerce that already exists, that state is going to need resources from other places. So they're going to have to communicate and set up business agreements to make that happen. And so while I'm not saying that it's impossible, I'm just saying that it's not as likely. And you kind of have to cross that bridge when you get there. But in the meantime, you set up, voluntary trade makes everybody peaceful. Like if everybody can make money off of something, then it benefits both parties to not engage in violence.
Yeah. So on the seasteading, like why isn't a billionaire started their own country yet? Like how do we get this done? Is it a bunch of Hexicans get rich in crypto? Could we fund it in that way? Like how does this happen? Like what do we need?
Well, so seasteading is a little different than like homesteading. Seasteading would actually have to be a little island in the sea. There's lots of engineering challenges that go along with that. So just for the sake of simplicity, let's just kind of maybe focus on homesteading, which is, finding a plot of land that already exists that you could potentially get. So you would probably have to find like, I'll say Sri Lanka, for example. Right now, they're bankrupt. They had a huge riot, protests. Well, they probably need a lot of money right now, and they might be willing to let go of some of their land to be able to get an influx of cash. And so you might be able to buy that land off of them and have that land become sovereign, right? Maybe you set up an agreement like, hey, we'll pay you for the next 10 years because we know you need money for some period of time because you're bankrupt. That's an agreement, like a loan, basically. And once the loan is paid off, that land is yours. It's no longer, they no longer receive royalties or whatever you want to call it. And so that's an opportunity. You go find a country where they're tight for cash, they're tight for money, they need resources, they want to set up these agreements, and you negotiate with them the ability to buy the land free and clear, no property tax. That's one way to do it.
Just imaginary horrible, throw it in there again. Say you make the agreement, but there's some, some other state in the world who's like, we don't think that's a good idea. We don't want these people to have power and use this land, blah, blah, blah. Do you think you think there's questions like that? Is your answer just like nobody cares?
No. So in that area, maybe India is like, we don't like this happening, and India might be hostile, right? I'm Punjabi, so that's the northernmost state of India, and
Okay.
there's a lot of conflict between that state and the rest of India. Not the people, but the government. The government they don't get along very well, and so and Pakistan is a perfect example. Pakistan used to be a part of India, and then in 1947 they split, and there's still a lot of tension there.
Well, other people don't know that. I just want to say real quick: Pakistan, India, Bangladesh used to be same place.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
These lines, they move around, right? Yeah. Nothing is forever. So don't think that secession can't happen in the States. But yeah, maybe they're hostile to it. But you could, part of the negotiation could, you could, you want to have security. Maybe you work that in. Maybe you would reach, like if you're setting up a business, and you, like, what kind of business? Let them. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of business would be maybe like, I don't know. I'll give a basic example. Like you have an intersection, a busy intersection, and there's one gas station there, and you want to bring another gas station, and well, that's competition to that gas station. Now, competition actually helps both good gas stations. Is actually good rather than like I forgot what this principle is called, but if you have two gas stations, like or you have one gas station 5 miles away from another gas station, now people have to choose which gas station they're going to go to, and maybe one gas station gets all the money and the other one doesn't. But if you have two gas stations right next to each other, now you split the cost, but now you bring commerce there and everybody goes there, so everybody wins, right? So competition can be good, but then if you have like more than two, I don't know what the perfect number is, but just for sake of arguments, if you have like 3 or 4, now you're like, well, now you're really splitting the money it's being divided up by too much. So let's say there's already 2 gas stations there, and now you want to bring in a third, and the 2 gas stations don't want the third gas station to be there. You're going to have to negotiate something potentially if you're on a free market system where you have every right to buy that land and compete with them. Now, it might be in your best interest to be like, hey, I want to open a gas station here. Maybe there's some compromise we can have. Maybe I set up a car wash, and so I set up a car wash, and I keep my prices for the gas a little bit higher, but then people come to me for the car wash. Maybe they get some gas, but they come to you primarily most of the time for the car wash. Another place has a convenience store. Like, you can negotiate these things. It is
okay. So I guess your point in this would be the homesteading. You'd want to have something to offer to make sure.
Absolutely. Everything is a negotiation. Okay. And that's how you do a really good job. You have to be a very good negotiator. You have to find out what the person wants and needs are. Another good book I'd recommend is 48 Laws of Power. Not for the sake of power, but just the sake of understanding how to communicate with people. One more. Sorry, I know I'm throwing out a lot of books, but I think
bring them, man. Bring them. We like to read here and listen. Mostly audiobooks these days. Okay.
Yeah, Never Split the Difference by something.
Great one, Chris Voss.
Yeah, Chris Voss, another great book. But all these things are negotiation. It's important to be able to identify what the wants and needs are of the other party, and then be able to either provide that or have them value what you offer enough for them to want to offer you more or something. So sure. Everything is a negotiation.
So how we get seasteading, homesteading, how we get our own country, how we get Hexico comes down to we need to get the resources, people, money together, find a place, have the technology, and make good deals. Make sure. Yeah.
In a very simplified version, yes. One last comment I'll make is I know they're trying to have the new world order and everything, but right now every country is in an anarchist relationship with each other, right? And so there's no reason why you couldn't decentralize that further. And what I mean by that is if there's a conflict between India and the US, there is no higher power above them that tells them how their interaction will go. They have to communicate with each other and negotiate and work it out. And if they don't work it out, or let's say US and Russia, they don't work it out, well, then you go to violence. But violence is, you try to avoid that at all costs. Like Cold War, they successfully avoided violence at all costs. I think Cold War was more of a psyop. And I don't think there was a zero cost to it, but at least violence wasn't the thing. These anarchist systems already exist. We're just not aware of them. And so you would have to just bring that idea that, yeah, you have to negotiate and work together, bring resources. And I think Richard Hart, with his big bags and growing bags and crypto in general, everything
Louis Vuitton bags.
is light up Louis Vuitton bags that I'm jealous of.
And the airplane. Don't sleep on the airplane. It's a nice airplane.
That is totally for flexing. That is no practical use to it. And I don't even, that thing looks like it's already stuffed. I feel like it's more of a stuffed airplane than it is with anything that you can.
How do you even carry it?
Yeah,
what do you put on your shoulder?
What
is it? I don't know.
How do you decorate with it? Like if it's a decoration piece, like where do you put it in your house? Like
you put it to the left of your microphone. Yeah.